In the heart of West Africa, where ancient savannas stretch under a relentless sun, a new line was drawn in 1919. A line of ink on a map, but a line that would redefine the lives of millions. This is the story of the birth of a colony, the Colonie de la Haute Volta, or Upper Volta. On March 1st, 1919, France, in the aftermath of the Great War, officially carved this new territory from the larger colony of Upper Senegal and Niger. But this wasn't just a simple administrative change. It was a move driven by deep-seated fears and calculated ambitions. What was France so afraid of? And what secrets lay behind this colonial creation? Let's journey back. The region we now know as Burkina Faso was a land of powerful, long-standing kingdoms, most notably the Mossi states. These kingdoms had resisted French colonial encroachment for decades. They were proud, organized societies with deep-rooted traditions. After World War I, the French Empire was stretched thin. It had recruited vast numbers of soldiers from its African colonies, including this very region. The experience of the war, combined with existing resentment towards colonial rule, created a volatile atmosphere. France feared that these powerful, centralized kingdoms could become the heart of a massive, coordinated rebellion that could threaten its entire West African dominion. The solution? Divide and conquer. By creating the new colony of Upper Volta, the French were attempting to break up the existing administrative unit of Upper Senegal and Niger. The official rationale was better governance and economic development. The colony was named after the upper reaches of the Volta River system, the Black, White, and Red Volta, which all have their sources within its borders. The French aimed to create an administrative unit that would be easier to control, separating the powerful Mossi from other ethnic groups and breaking old allegiances. They established their capital in Ouagadougou, the historic heart of the Mossi Empire, placing their authority directly at the center of the people they most wanted to subdue. But control wasn't just about redrawing maps. It was about the economy. This region was seen as a vast reservoir of labor. The French implemented policies of forced labor, conscripting thousands of men to work on plantations in the neighboring Ivory Coast or to build railways and roads for the colonial infrastructure. This system was brutal. It tore families apart, devastated local agriculture, and was a primary source of the deep-seated resentment that the French were so keen to manage. The creation of Upper Volta streamlined this exploitation, making it easier to recruit and dispatch laborers under the watchful eye of a dedicated colonial administration. So, while the fear of rebellion was a powerful motivator, the economic engine of colonialism demanded a constant supply of cheap labor, and Upper Volta was designed to deliver it. Life for the early inhabitants, resilient farmers and herders who had tilled this land for generations, was irrevocably altered. New borders cut across traditional trade routes and ethnic lines. French administrators imposed new taxes, often payable only in French currency, forcing people into the cash economy and the labor market. The colonial legal system was superimposed over traditional laws, creating confusion and conflict. While the French built some schools and health clinics, their primary purpose was to support the colonial machine, not to genuinely uplift the population. The very fabric of society was being unraveled and rewoven to serve the interests of a distant European power. But history is never a straight line. The grand colonial project of Upper Volta proved to be short-lived, at least in its first incarnation. By the early 1930s, the world was in the grip of the Great Depression. The economic rationale for the colony began to crumble. The cost of administering this vast landlocked territory became a burden. So, in 1932, in another stroke of a pen, France dissolved the colony of Upper Volta. Its territory was partitioned and distributed among the neighboring colonies of French Sudan, modern-day Mali, Ivory Coast, and Niger. The Mossi people and others were once again divided, their lands absorbed into different administrative zones. This move was justified by economic efficiency, but it once again showed how the lives and identities of millions were subject to the whims of colonial bureaucrats in Paris. The story doesn't end there, however. After World War II, the global political landscape had shifted dramatically. The era of empire was waning, and calls for independence were growing louder across Africa and Asia. France, weakened by the war and facing pressure to decolonize, began to rethink its colonial strategy. In this new context, the Mossi people, who had never lost their sense of distinct identity, began to agitate for the restoration of their territorial unit. Their traditional leaders, or Mogo Nabas, lobbied the French authorities relentlessly. They argued that the 1932 partition was an injustice that needed to be reversed. Yielding to this pressure and perhaps seeing a strategic advantage in creating a loyal, conservative state amidst more radical nationalist movements, France re-established the colony of Upper Volta in 1947. It was a remarkable reversal, a testament to the persistence of the Mossi people and the shifting sands of colonial policy. This revived Upper Volta would then set out on the path that eventually led to its independence in 1960. The name itself would last until 1984, when the revolutionary leader Thomas Sankara renamed the country Burkina Faso, meaning Land of Incorruptible People, a definitive break from its colonial past. So, when we ask what veiled fears prompted the birth of Upper Volta, the answer is complex. It was born from a fear of African resistance, a desire to control powerful kingdoms, and the economic greed that fueled the entire colonial enterprise. Its brief dissolution and eventual revival reveal the contradictions and instabilities of imperial rule. The lines drawn in 1919 were not arbitrary. They were weapons of control, tools of exploitation, and the source of divisions that echo to this day. The history of Upper Volta is a powerful reminder that borders on a map are never just lines. They are stories of power, resistance, and the enduring quest for identity. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey. What are your thoughts on this chapter of history? Do you see parallels in other parts of the world? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories from our shared global past. See you next time.